Chapter 1184. After staying on the Azure Dragon planet for a while, Yi Chen decided to leave. As for Su Jing and Morong Qingcheng, they needed to cultivate without any distractions, and the Azure Dragon planet was perfect for them. Little guy, this is a gift from our dragon clan. On the plaza, Golden Armor Dragon Emperor tossed out 2 jade tags toward Yi Chen. One was entirely blue, and the other was shining with a colorful light. What are these? Catching the jade tags, Yi Chen examined them. Both had huge dragon carvings on them, looking quite extraordinary. The blue jade tag is the guest token of our dragon clan. As for the colorful jade plate, it is a sealing jade plate. This jade plate is very rare, and has the power of the sacred dragon fist sealed inside. In a life and death crisis, you can unseal the jade plate, and release the power of the sacred dragon fist. The power of the sacred dragon fist is closely related to your cultivation. With your 6th sky of life and death realm cultivation base, you can probably only release the power of the 7th step sacred dragon fist. That's right. It's a guest badge of our dragon clan, which means that from now on, you are a guest warrior of our dragon clan. In other words, from now on, you are a guest warrior of our dragon clan. If you have any problems that you can't solve, you can come to our dragon clan for help. Golden Armor Dragon Emperor said with a smile. Thanks. Even rank 7 Sacred Dragon Fist's power was already very powerful. It could instantly kill a low-level emperor, and even a mid-level emperor would be heavily wounded. No need to thank me. If you live longer, it will be good for our dragon clan. Hee, I'll try my best. The phantom took off, flying toward the atmosphere of the Azure Dragon planet. Try your best to stay alive. The alien race will not allow you to become stronger. Golden Armor Dragon Emperor mumbled to himself. He had seen too many geniuses fall in the hands of the alien race. He himself was not a world-shaking genius, but he had encountered countless dangers in his life. If he had not survived even one, he would not be here anymore. In other words, the more frightening Yi Chen's talent was, the more dangerous his situation would be. The alien race would do anything to eliminate him, lest the human race have another supreme. Suddenly, Golden Armor Dragon Emperor smiled. The human race is not anxious, but our dragon clan is. Paradise of God. Right now, I have shown too much power. I'm afraid that the non-human kind has been planning to kill me for a long time. If I show a little bit more power, a little bit scarier, the non-human kind will probably launch a bigger plan and send out more powerful assassins just to be safe. The tallest tree in the forest will be blown away by the wind. This saying is not without reason. It seems that I shouldn't provoke the foreign races too much for a long time. Let's wait until I have some confidence. After looking at the God of War pagoda, Yi Chen shook his head and turned to leave. The God of War pagoda had a total of 10 levels. Reaching the 10th level would give one the power of a battle emperor. If passing the 10th level, one would have the power of a battle emperor. Yi Chen had the so-called battle emperor power a long time ago, so passing the 10th level was not a problem for him. It was said that passing the 10th level of the God of War pagoda and survival tower would give a lot of Shinbi, enough to exchange for 3 high-grade Heavenly King sets. And high-grade Heavenly King sets were equivalent to high-grade Thearch tier armor. In addition, high-grade Heavenly King sets could also increase one's energy and combat power by several times. In terms of value, they were several times more valuable than high-grade Thearch tier armor. However, Yi Chen did not plan to pass the God of War pagoda and survival tower so early. This was mainly because once he passed the God of War pagoda and survival tower, he would leave his name on the God of War tablet and survival tablet on the 10th level. One had to know that all the God of War tablets and survival tablets were the same. Once he left his name, the other members of the paradise would also know. In this way, he would not be able to hide it even if he wanted to. He could only wait for the non-human kind to assassinate him. He could not always hide in his house and not go out. Of course, this was mainly because the reward was not high enough. If it were enough for Yi Chen to exchange for a peak Heavenly King set, perhaps Yi Chen would consider it. A high-level Heavenly King set would cost 5 million, and a peak Heavenly King set would cost 30 million. In terms of defense, a peak Heavenly King set was comparable to a low-level Emperor armor. Moreover, it could amplify one's energy by 10 times under the 7th layer of life and death realm, which was equivalent to 10 times the battle power. At Yi Chen's level, 10 times the battle power might not be much. A slight improvement in his martial arts would increase his battle power by dozens or even hundreds of times. However, sometimes it was crucial. After all, there was a limit to one's defense. In the following days, Yi Chen stayed in the 2nd floor of the Time Tower. He was not trying to increase his cultivation base, but trying to comprehend the sword domain. The higher the sword domain, the harder it was to improve. Although the sword domain had great benefits in improving the sword domain, one had to have a deep understanding of the sword domain. Otherwise, one would not be able to absorb too much of the sword Tao essence. At this moment, Yi Chen's sword domain had already reached the peak of the 5th layer, only one step away from the 6th layer. The peak of the 5th layer and the 6th layer seemed to be separated by only one step, but the difference was like heaven and earth. Domain was the obstacle for all experts. Even Supremes would have a headache when it came to domains. The majority of Supremes' domains were still at the 8th layer, and some body refinement kings' domains were still at the peak of the 7th layer. If Yi Chen could push his sword domain to the 6th layer, it would undoubtedly be a qualitative improvement. Time flew by like a shuttle. In the blink of an eye, it was time to enter the high-rank hunting battlefield. The Demon Hunter Squad had become a taboo in the high-rank hunting battlefield. Basically, no alien race paradise squad dared to approach them. As soon as they saw the Demon Hunter Squad, they would run away, making the other members of the Demon Hunter Squad very depressed. Yi Chen, on the other hand, did not think much of it. He knew that everything had two sides. Without opponents, the Demon Hunter Squad focused all their attention on killing god insects. They could only rely on killing god insects to accumulate Shinbi. Fortunately, everyone was afraid of them, so they had no scruples. They searched everywhere for god insects. The more powerful they were, the better. Ordinary god insects, elite god insects, and commander god insects. They killed batch after batch. After 7 days, the Exorcist team had killed 100 ordinary god insects, 30 elite god insects, and 10 commander god insects. The team's total profit, including the team's rewards, had reached 1,211,000 divine coins. Yi Chen alone took the greater half, 700,000 divine coins. Although it was not as much as before, it was still a lot. After leaving the hunting tower, Yi Chen returned to the 2nd floor of the Tower of Time. At the same time, the geniuses outside were surging. 10 years had passed, and the God's trial field was about to open again. Rumor had it that this time, the number of people entering the paradise of God would be increased. In the past, there were only about 10 people, but this time, it might increase to 20 or even 30 people. The main reason was that the paradise of God had too few members, and they needed to replenish some new blood. Of course, the number of people was in the hands of the paradise of God's deity. He was the manager of the paradise of God, and in his eyes, there must be a standard. If one didn't pass the standard, he would most likely not let them enter. Chapter 1185. 1 month later, the God's trial field opened. All the geniuses under the age of 50 from the 4 major life star fields rushed over, ready to display their skills and stand out. Among these geniuses, there was a group of unfamiliar geniuses who were very eye-catching. It was a woman who was obviously from the dragon race. Her sacred dragon fist was extremely tyrannical, much stronger than Yang Ting's from the previous generation. Based on the form of her sacred dragon fist, people guessed that she was a high-level golden dragon of the dragon race. Everyone had seen a lot of beautiful women who cultivated demonic qi. There were a large number of beautiful women on the scene. Each and every one of them had top-notch looks and temperament. However, compared to this beautiful woman who cultivated demonic qi, all of them were slightly inferior. Although it was just a little bit, it was very difficult to surpass her. After all, even beautiful women had their limits. Obviously, this beautiful woman had reached her limit. Moreover, her strength was not weak. She was one of the top geniuses present. There was a white-haired young bladesman with a terrifying saber art. It was hard to describe how terrifying his saber art was. It was even stronger than the peerless bladesman Lung Fifan from the previous generation. Up until now, no one had been able to block his saber. There was a woman in red with an ethereal temperament. Her movements were very fast. She was the fastest among the geniuses present. In addition, her palm art was also very good. There was not a trace of smoke in it, but it had great destructive power. Her sword art was extremely cold, almost catching up to the genius sword King Yi Chun of the previous generation. There was a woman in blue whose saber art was only slightly inferior to the white-haired young bladesman. No one knew where they came from. Just like Yi Chen's sudden appearance, they quickly became famous in the 4 major life star fields and shook the entire genius world. These people were naturally geniuses from Elysium. In the end, 28 people stood out and qualified to enter the gods' paradise. 7 of them were from Elysium: Su Jing, Morong Qingqing, Dugaju, Dantai Mingyue, Snow Sword of Gojoseon, Lan Sanmei, and Jiang Tian. In Elysium, there were actually a few geniuses at this level, such as Chu Zhongtian, Lu Wujian, and the others. However, these people were already over 50 years old, which was quite a pity. Among the 7, Su Jing and Dugaju ranked 1st and 2nd, Snow Sword of Gojoseon 4th, Jiang Tian 5th, Dantai Mingyue 7th, Lan Sanmei 14th, and Morong Qingqing 15th. In terms of perception, Morong Qingqing was slightly inferior to the other 6. Before Elysium's wild star was discovered, Morong Qingqing's ranking was actually very high. Paradise of God, Su Jing, Dugaju, and the other 28 people looked around curiously. It was their first time coming to the Paradise of Gods, so they were very interested in everything. Welcome to the Paradise of Gods. Yi Chen flew over with a smile on his face. He had come out a day earlier. After all, the people of Elysium had entered the Paradise of Gods, so he had to do his part as a host. Fuck, what's going on? Sword King Yi Chen has to personally welcome this group of newcomers. Yi Chen is the #1 person in many paradises. Ordinary people can't even see him. Maybe he's a friend of the Sword King. Yes, it should be. Only friends don't care about the difference in strength between them. Many members of the Paradise of Gods were discussing. Yi Chen wasn't just like the sun at noon in the Paradise of Gods. In other paradises, Yi Chen was also a topic that had to be talked about. Whether they admitted it or not, Yi Chen was the #1 person in the Paradise of Gods. It couldn't be changed. Yi Chen had many titles and nicknames, such as Genius Sword King, Paradise's #1 person, Strongest Battler, and King of Hunters. Genius Sword King was Yi Chen's title in the beginning. Now he was the Sword King title, the same as in Elysium. As for the #1 person in the Paradise of Gods, it was everyone's respectful title. Strongest Battler and King of Hunters were the terrifying achievements of Yi Chen in the advanced hunting battlefield. In just 10 years, Yi Chen had changed the situation in the advanced hunting battlefield, where only a few families were dominant. Why is this guy the #1 person everywhere he goes? Jiang Tian was very unhappy. If you have the ability, you can be the #1 person too. Lan Sanmei heard Jiang Tian's muttering. Looking at Su Jing's group of 7 being invited to the Paradise of Gods hotel by Yi Chen, the remaining 21 newcomers were curious and envious. They couldn't help but ask around. Although they had heard about Yi Chen's achievements, they didn't know the details. Moreover, news always needed time to spread. Yi Chen's achievements in the past few years hadn't spread like wildfire. After asking around, the 21 newcomers were dumbfounded. In just 10 years, he had become the #1 person in the Paradise of Gods. This was too abnormal. Immediately, their fighting spirit rose. The Paradise of Gods was just the beginning. They had nothing to be proud of. They could only struggle from the bottom. In the hotel, the 8 of them sat around a table. Jiang Tian also had a share. The past was the past, and there were no grudges between them. There was no need to be so petty and exclude each other. After ordering a table full of top-grade wine, Yi Chen said, "It's very difficult to earn Shimbi in the early stages of the Paradise of Gods. You have to be mentally prepared. In the next few years, you will all have to struggle in there, and won't be able to leave the Paradise of Gods. I believe 100 Shimbi is very important to you. You won't waste it. Entering and exiting the paradise of gods cost 100 shinbi. Going back and forth would cost 200 shinbi. This was a huge sum for newcomers. After all, they could only earn shinbi by challenging the god of war pagoda and survival pagoda. There was no other way. You have already survived. There's no reason we can't. Dugaju didn't seem to care. Not bad. The snow sword of Gojoseon nodded. Haha, everyone, let's drink. I hope all of you can succeed. Yichen didn't tell them how dangerous the paradise of gods hunting battlefield was. He believed that they had already investigated it. It would be pretentious if he told them. The next day, everyone started challenging the god of war pagoda. The results were shocking. Su Jing and Dugaju both made it to the 4th level, the same result as Yichen. The snow sword of Gojoseon, Jiang Tian, and Dantai Mingyue were on the 3rd level. Lan Sanmei and Murong Qingqing were on the 2nd level. This result wasn't too exaggerated. One had to know that when Yichen participated in the divine trial, he wasn't even 40. Now, everyone was close to 50, and in history, the 1st and 2nd place of the divine trial were actually around 40 years old. Top geniuses usually participated at this age. If one really waited until they were 50 to participate, they wouldn't be considered top geniuses. It was just that this year was a little special. For example, if Jiao and Lung Fifan also waited until this year to participate, they would definitely be the 1st and 2nd place. If Yichen also waited until this year to participate, he would be the 1st. 1st and 2nd place weren't important. What was important was what kind of results one could achieve in the paradise of gods. It could be said that the paradise of gods was the true starting point for a genius. What you had achieved before was nothing. Here, anyone could easily defeat you. If you couldn't keep up, you would only be eliminated and gradually become a lower class. Chapter 1186. Not staying too long in the paradise of gods. Yi Chun, Scarlet Wind Emperor, Snow Emperor, and the Air Emperor agreed to meet at the end of the month. On the ship of God, Yi Chun quietly headed to the Black Tortoise Star Field's Golden Armor Planet. Golden Armor Planet, Sun Moon Restaurant. Haha, we were waiting for you. I thought you would be a few days late. Scarlet Wind Emperor welcomed him with a smile. Yi Chun saw the Fire Sparrow Emperor and the Stone Golem Emperor and said, "Looks like I'm the slowest." "Of course you're the slowest. We arrived 3 days ago." The Fire Sparrow Emperor curled his lips. The 5 sat down and started eating. When they were almost done, they started talking. "Brother Yi, we agreed to meet at the end of the month. You should have guessed something, right?" Scarlet Wind Emperor drank a mouthful of wine and said. Yi Chun said, "It should be a team exploration. You hit the nail on the head. Not bad." Scarlet Wind Emperor gave a thumbs up, admiring Yi Chun. Yi Chun smiled. "What secret realm? I'm not interested if it's an ordinary secret realm." His own disciple had started to explore secret realms. Yi Chun was somewhat curious. After all, he had been in the 4 major star fields for more than a decade. It was inexcusable that he hadn't entered a star secret realm even once. Violet Secret Realm. Snow Air Emperor continued. Oh, one of the 3 Emperor-level secret realms. Secret realms were divided into many levels. The lowest was the King level, followed by the Heavenly King level, then the Emperor level, and the most terrifying Supreme level. Emperor-level mystic realms were more suitable for the 7th heavens titled monarchs. To 7th heaven titled monarchs, it wasn't considered too dangerous. However, this was just an ordinary Emperor-level mystic realm. As one of the 3 great Emperor-level mystic realms, the Violet Flower Mystic Realm was 10 times more dangerous. Even peak-level monarchs would face considerable danger if they entered. Correspondingly, there were many treasures within the Violet Flower Mystic Realm. There were all sorts of Emperor-level spiritual herbs within. The magnificent purple immortal grass was a peak Emperor tier spirit herb. It could heal soul injuries and restore soul force. It was not an exaggeration to call it a life-saving spirit herb at a critical moment. Other than spirit herbs, there were also many other treasures in the Violet Flower Secret Realm. As long as one could come out alive, they would not return empty-handed. "Did you find any life and death fruits in the Violet Secret Realm?" Yi Chun suddenly asked. "Fruit of life and death? The Snow Air Emperor was astonished. What do you want this for? This thing is useless to us. It is only useful to those who have no hope of advancing to the life and death realm. Yichen didn't hide anything. This is for my parents. So that's how it is. However, I really don't know if the Violet Mystery Area has the fruit of life and death. I think it should. After all, the Violet Mystery Area is rich in spiritual grasses. On the side, the Stone Emperor said, the life and death fruit is a very special spirit plant in the universe. It doesn't grow in a fixed place. It can exist in any special place. If you want to find it, you might not find it in your entire life. But if you're lucky, you can find it anywhere. That's true. Yichen nodded and said, why did you think of me? Actually, we haven't known each other for that long. Hearing this, the Fire Sparrow Emperor said, what? Are you afraid that we'll cheat you? Not really. I'm just a bit curious. The Scarlet Wind Emperor explained. There's no need to think about 8th level Sky Emperors. They usually choose to explore Emperor level secret realms. Although we know many people below 8th level Sky Emperors, there aren't many who are strong enough. Most importantly, everyone has their own circle. The 4 of us are a circle. I don't know if you're willing to join us. As he spoke, the Scarlet Wind Emperor looked at Yichen. Since you guys don't mind, then Yichen will gladly accept. I hope we can have a pleasant cooperation in the future. Yichen didn't act pretentious and said straightforwardly. A pleasant cooperation. The Scarlet Wind Emperor and the Snow Air Emperor revealed a faint smile. Yichen's potential and strength were obvious to all. Whether it was because of Yichen's outstanding temperament, or because of Yichen's potential, it wouldn't be wrong to make friends with him. When do we leave? Yichen asked. There's no rush. I have an incomplete map of the Violet Flower Secret Realm. Let's study it first. It's better than wandering around. The Scarlet Wind Emperor took out an incomplete map. Although it was called an incomplete map, it was actually quite complete. The material was similar to sheepskin, but it was many times tougher than sheepskin. It faintly glowed, and there were many lines carved on it. Yichen looked over, and found that the lines were very dense. He couldn't see anything at all. When he focused, he discovered that it was a miniature map. He needed to magnify it by 1,000 times to see it clearly. It was obvious that this map covered a very large area. I obtained this map fragment from an auction. If it's real, then it can save us a lot of time, and also avoid a lot of danger. The areas marked in red should be dangerous areas, and the areas marked in green should be treasures. However, I've been to the Violet Flower Secret Realm a few times, and I haven't found a similar terrain. Take a look and see if you've seen any familiar terrain. The Scarlet Wind Emperor completely spread out the map fragment. Yichen had never been to the Violet Flower Secret Realm, so he didn't have the right to speak. He silently memorized the map. After half the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the Stone Man Emperor pointed at a small dot. This dot was magnified by 1,000 times, and it was a Jade Maiden Peak. He said, I've been to this place before. Good, like this, we've deciphered this map. The Scarlet Wind Emperor was in high spirits. As long as they could find the Jade Maiden Peak, this map would be of great use. Let's depart in 3 days. Everyone get ready. Putting away the map, the Scarlet Wind Emperor suggested. Sure. Yichen nodded. We have no objections. 3 days later, the 5 of them set off. The Violet Flower Secret Realm was not located in the 4 major life star fields. It was located 300,000 light-years to the southeast of the Black Tortoise star field. The 5 of them first used the transmission array to arrive at the southeastern edge of the Black Tortoise star field, then boarded the Scarlet Wind Emperor's small Emperor-grade warship. Speaking of this small Emperor-grade warship, it was something the Scarlet Wind Emperor found in a secret realm. At that time, it was very broken, and he had to spend countless essence stones to find someone to fix it. In terms of speed, an Emperor-grade warship was 3 times faster than an Emperor-grade warship. Crossing 300,000 light-years would only take a dozen days. The interior of the Emperor-grade warship was luxurious, many times more luxurious than Yichen's phantom ship. The southern part of the Black Tortoise star field is occupied by the demons and other alien tribes. The Violet Flower Secret Realm is not too far from these alien tribes. This time, we will inevitably run into the demons and other alien tribes experts. Everyone be careful. In the space, every secret realm was dangerous, but the majority of the danger came from the alien tribes, unless it was the secret realms in the 4 major life star fields. However, the secret realms in the 4 major life star fields were mostly king-grade secret realms, heavenly king-grade secret realms, and higher-grade secret realms were rare. What's there to be afraid of? If one comes, we'll just kill one. The Firebird Emperor's eyes glimmered with a crimson light. Chapter 1187. 10 days was not a short period of time for ordinary people. But for Yi Chen and the rest, it was just a blink of an eye. Casually drinking some wine, and looking at the image recording crystal, the time passed by quickly. We're here. On this day, Scarlet Wind Emperor controlled a small Emperor-grade battleship and appeared in the sky. Through the crystal, the 5 saw a faint purple whirlpool, which was the entrance to the Violet Secret Realm. Emperor Shuekong said, "There are dozens of entrances to the Violet Secret Realm, and the locations of these entrances are not fixed. This time, we appeared on the ocean, and the next time we might appear on land. It's purely a matter of luck. If we're lucky, we might be teleported to the location on the map, saving a lot of time." "Let's go in," Stone Emperor said to Scarlet Wind Emperor. All right. Scarlet Wind Emperor controlled the battleship and entered the whirlpool. Buzz! The whirlpool wriggled, and the battleship disappeared. The next moment, the battleship arrived on a green ocean. On a closer look, it was not an ocean but a boundless green zone. There were many kinds of plants below, including vines, trees, flowers, and shrubs. It looked very crowded and green. "I've never been here before," Stone Emperor said suspiciously. "I've never been here either." "Who cares? The Violet Secret Realm is unimaginably huge. Up until now, no one has even explored a tenth of it. It's normal that you've never been here." Scarlet Wind Emperor didn't mind as he continued to control the battleship. The interior of the Violet Secret Realm was filled with dense air currents, making it impossible to travel through the void. Regardless of the grade of the battleship, it would need to reach light speed to travel through the void. It was completely different from the instant movement of an 8th-layer Emperor. However, an Emperor-grade battleship was still an Emperor-grade battleship. After flying for an hour, the 5 still couldn't see the edge of the green zone. Even with Yi Chen's soul eye, he couldn't see it. Worthy of the Violet Secret Realm, Yi Chen sighed inwardly. His soul eye could see things a billion li away, but he couldn't see the edge of the plant zone. This meant that the plant zone's width far exceeded a billion li. It was many times larger than True Spirit Continent, Blood Sky Continent, and Sky Sword Continent combined. It could even be called a green continent. Look, there seems to be a battleship wreckage below. The Flamingo Emperor seemed to have discovered something. Battleship wreckage? What's going on? Soon, Yi Chen's group of 4 also saw the wreckage of a warship scattered on the ground hundreds of thousands of miles away. These warship wreckages were all covered by plants, and without careful observation, it would be hard to notice. "It looks like it was torn?" The Stone Golem Emperor's expression changed. Yi Chen said, "It seems like this is an Emperor-class warship. What could possibly tear it apart?" Tearing apart and destroying were 2 different things. Destroying wasn't difficult, but tearing apart was much more difficult. The Scarlet Wind Emperor muttered, "I'm afraid we've come to a dangerous place. Below us, there might be terrifying plant life similar to the monarch flower." Plant life forms were very difficult to deal with. Their attacks were usually overwhelming, and there was no way to escape. Once one was entangled, there was only a slim chance of survival. Among them, the Emperor flowers were the most notorious. "Let's go up first," the Snow Air Emperor suggested. The Scarlet Wind Emperor nodded and raised the Scarlet Wind higher. The sky above the Purple Flower Secret Realm was filled with purple air currents. The higher they went, the denser the purple air currents were. There were also purple electric currents flashing in the purple air currents. It was said that at a certain height, the powerful purple electric currents could even endanger a beginner-level Emperor warrior's life. The Scarlet Wind Emperor didn't dare to go any higher after about 5,000 meters. The purple electric currents hit the Scarlet Wind's energy shield, making crackling sounds. The consumption of the source stones increased rapidly. The higher the level of the warship, the faster the consumption of the source stones. Of course, the 5 of them weren't ordinary people, so they didn't care about the source stones. Whoosh! The change in altitude caused the Scarlet Wind to slow down. The resistance of the purple air currents was very strong. I hope we can leave this plant area safely. The Scarlet Wind Emperor let out a sigh and smiled bitterly. Adapt to the situation. It's impossible for there to be danger in such a large plant area. Although it was Yi Chen's first time exploring the galaxy's secret realm, he didn't feel nervous at all. Maybe he was born for an intense life. After flying for another hour, a small Emperor-class warship appeared in front of them. The warship didn't maintain a high altitude, so it probably hadn't sensed the danger in the plant area. It's the Wuxia race's Emperor-class warship. The Fire Sparrow Emperor sneered. They're in danger. Yi Chen's pupil shrank. He could feel a sense of danger coming to the underground. Since the Purple Flower secret realm was way too special, there were so many plants that he could not even imagine. For a moment, he could not tell what was going on with his soul eyes. He only knew that it was not a good thing. As soon as Yi Chen's voice faded, whoosh, 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 countless air-piercing sounds rang out as black vines shot towards the Emperor-class warship. The black vines were so fast that the warship didn't even have time to react before it was tightly bound. Oh my god, why are there death god vines? Run! The door of the Emperor-class warship opened, and 4 figures flew out. In the next moment, the energy barrier of the warship twisted, and dozens of vines pierced through the warship, tearing it apart. The monarchs of the Wuxia race, who had flown out of the warship, didn't care about what happened to the warship. All of them flew up quickly, their faces pale. Unfortunately, no matter how fast they were, they couldn't outrun the black vines. One of the monarchs had his right leg entangled, and he was dragged down. He tried to cut off his right leg, but it was too late. 2 more vines had wrapped around his body. No matter how much energy he used, it was useless. If he didn't attack directly, he wouldn't be able to cause much damage to the death god vines. Pfft! The monarchs of the Wuxia race were dragged into the depths of the ground, and their screams stopped. The other 3 monarchs of the Wuxia race attacked the black vines crazily. Huge saber chi, fist force, and water arrows tore the black vines apart. However, at this moment, a purple lightning struck down, and the monarchs of the Wuxia race who had flown up the highest screamed and fell down. He had risen too high, and the purple electric currents in the sky were attracted by his body. They gathered together and turned into a thick purple lightning that struck him. His body was covered with purple electric currents, and he was also dragged down by the black vines. Only the 2 monarchs of the Wuxia race were left. One of them saw the Scarlet Wind Thearch's Scarlet Wind ship and hurriedly said, "Run in that direction." These 2 bastards. The Scarlet Wind Thearch's expression was ugly. The death god vines were plant life forms that were even more terrifying than the Tharch flower. Given the death god vine's power, they might not be able to penetrate the Scarlet Wind ship's defenses. However, they could still entangle the Scarlet Wind ship and drag it down. The Scarlet Wind ship was his lifeblood. Go. The Scarlet Wind Tharch steered the Scarlet Wind ship away from the 2. Stop. The monarchs of the Wuxia race who were flying in front slashed at the Scarlet Wind ship. With a bang, the Scarlet Wind ship shook, and its speed decreased significantly. Chapter 1188. Courting Death. The Scarlet Wind Emperor was not a benevolent person. Moreover, the other party was one of the mortal enemies of the human race, the Wuxia race. On the Scarlet Wind ship, 24 puppet cannons were aimed over. Boom, boom. 24 scarlet red beams of light shot out. 2 titled monarchs of the Wuxia race had to increase their speed to shake off the death god vines, so they were unable to dodge in time. One of them was hit by one of the cannons, and although the other managed to dodge, he was also affected by the shockwave. The Scarlet Wind ship was a Thearch-class battleship, and its puppet cannons were very powerful. Even a peak-tier Tharch would be severely injured, and lose his ability to fight if he was hit. The Thearctir monarch of the Yiksha race, who was hit instantly burst into red flames. Even his Thearctir armor was damaged. This showed how powerful the Thearctir puppet cannons were. Blood-curdling screams rang out one after another, as the two of them were dragged down by the death god vines. After settling the problem, the Scarlet Wind Emperor continued to control the Scarlet Wind battleship to fly at its maximum speed. However, he didn't think that it would be easy to get rid of the death god vine. So he began to accumulate energy for the main cannon. Scarlet Wind had 24 puppet cannons. Among them, 22 were secondary cannons, and 2 were main cannons. Each shot of the secondary cannons would consume around 200,000 yuan stones. Normally, the power of the main cannon was similar to that of the secondary cannons, but the material of the main cannon was better, and the formations carved on it were more powerful. It could continuously accumulate yuan stone energy. When the yuan stone energy was accumulated to the limit, a shot of the cannon would be dozens of times more powerful than the secondary cannons. Even a low-level emperor warrior would be severely injured or even killed. Of course, puppet cannons were inanimate objects, and they could only attack in a straight line. Unless a low-level emperor warrior stood still, the chance of being hit was infinitely close to zero. I didn't expect to encounter a death vine here. The Snow Air Emperor's face was filled with worry. The death god vine was named after the death god, and naturally, it wasn't just a rumor. The emperor-ranked death god vine was an overwhelming existence to any seventh heaven-titled monarch. In a one-on-one battle, there was almost no chance of victory. Furthermore, titled monarchs that were weaker than high-class emperors were cannon fodder that could be instantly killed. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The Reaper Vine caught up. Die! The Scarlet Wind Emperor controlled the 22 secondary cannons and started firing. Unfortunately, the puppet cannon could only attack in a straight line. It was not flexible enough, so it was hard for it to hit the Reaper Vine. Fortunately, it slightly suppressed the Reaper Vine's attack speed. Turn right. There's a Grim Reaper Vine ahead too. It was at this time that Yi Chen quickly spoke, reminding the Scarlet Wind Emperor. Fuck. The Scarlet Wind Emperor was shocked. He hurriedly controlled the Scarlet Wind to make a right turn, and drew a beautiful and rapid red arc in midair, barely dodging the attack of the death god vines. Hold on a little longer. The main cannon's energy is almost fully charged. The Scarlet Wind Emperor's forehead began to sweat. Not only was he worried about whether or not he could escape from this vegetative zone, he was even more worried about whether or not his Scarlet Wind would encounter any mishaps. This was his lifeblood, and if he were to sell it, he could easily earn a few billion. Furthermore, there was no market for it. Hoo. Scarlet Wind broke through the purple air currents and flew at its limit. Yi Chen reckoned that if it was his phantom, it would have been torn into two by the death god vines. After a dozen breaths, the Scarlet Wind Emperor said joyfully, "All right, these two detestable fellows have a taste of the power of the main cannon of the emperor-level warship." The main cannon turned around and aimed behind him. Boom! Boom! 2 earth-shattering explosions were heard. The Scarlet Wind ship shook violently, as if it could not bear the recoil of the main cannon. The 5 of them scanned the area behind them with their soul power, and saw 2 red beams of light shooting into the ground. In the next moment, 2 terrifying fireballs exploded. The fireballs grew bigger and bigger, until they formed a hemispherical shape. Each of them covered a radius of a few hundred miles. In the end, they collided with each other, as if a red sphere had been split in half. The black vines of the death god vines were shattered by the fireballs, falling down powerlessly. They could no longer chase after the Scarlet Wind ship. Success! The Scarlet Wind Emperor wore a smile on his face. The main cannon of the Emperor-level warship is indeed powerful. Yi Chen was astonished. The Purple Flower Secret Realm was similar to a life-preserving planet, and it had a severe rejection of energy. Even so, the main cannon of the Emperor-level warship could still destroy hundreds of miles of ground. How could it not be powerful? 2 cannons cost 10 million yuan stones. The Scarlet Wind Emperor said proudly, "Tisk, isn't it just an Emperor-level warship?" The Fire Sparrow Emperor said with disdain. The Snow Air Emperor laughed. Little Sparrow, are you jealous? Me? Jealous of him? Shut up. It seems like we have provoked a really powerful creature. The Stone Man Emperor looked serious as he pointed to the right. Tens of thousands of miles to the right, a horrifying black vine that was over 10,000 miles long and hundreds of meters thick broke out of the ground. This black vine was not only bare, but it also had many branches, and there were even more vines on the branches. It was like an inescapable net. Compared to it, the Death God vines were not even worth mentioning. Is that the Emperor-level Death God vines? Since when has the Purple Flower Secret Realm become so dangerous? This time, everyone was a little dumbfounded. We can see the edge there. Let's go there. There was always a way out. Yi Chen used his soul eyes and finally saw the edge of the green land. It was a purple air current with lightning flashing. Although it did not look very safe, it was better than fighting the Emperor-level Death God vines. Let's go. At this moment, no one had any will to fight. If the Emperor-level Death God vines caught up, they would definitely die. This green land should be the Death God vines' territory. The Scarlet Wind was fast, but the Emperor-level Death God vines were even faster. 20,000 miles, 10,000 miles, 5,000 miles, 2,000 miles. Swoosh. A vine that was slightly thinner, but was still a dozen meters thick extended from the main vine, and ruthlessly lashed at the Scarlet Wind. Immediately, the Scarlet Wind was sent flying. Its energy shield was extremely distorted, and was on the verge of shattering. Everyone leave the Scarlet Wind now. As soon as the Scarlet Wind was thrown away, the Scarlet Wind Emperor knew it was not good. He quickly opened the cabin door and let everyone out. Swoosh. Swoosh. The five rushed out, and the Scarlet Wind Emperor put away the Scarlet Wind. In terms of traveling speed, the Scarlet Wind Emperor could not compare to the Scarlet Wind Emperor himself. However, the Scarlet Wind Emperor was safer because its energy shield could withstand multiple attacks from a beginner-level Emperor-level warrior. But now was not the time to care about that. The giant Scarlet Wind Emperor had become a live target. After leaving the Scarlet Wind Emperor, the five's speed increased. They were getting closer and closer to the purple air current at the edge of the green land, but the Emperor-level Death God vines were also getting closer. Soon, the five increased their speed to the limit. Among them, Yi Chen was the fastest. Swoosh. At this moment the Rock Emperor, who was the slowest, suddenly stopped. His feet were entangled by a vine as thick as a wrist. The vine then split into even thinner vines, entangling the Rock Emperor's body. You guys go. Seeing the four turn around, the Rock Emperor's face flashed with a struggling expression. He then roared. No! The Fire Sparrow Emperor was usually carefree, but she was the first to rush over. Bang! Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of the Fire Sparrow Emperor and knocked her back. What are you doing? The Fire Sparrow Emperor glared at Yi Chen with fire in his eyes. I'm going to save him. Then, Yi Chen quickly flew toward the Rock Emperor. Chapter 1189. The Stone Puppet Emperor was very strong, even stronger than the Scarlet Wind Emperor. However, once his limbs and body were entangled, he couldn't even use 10 to 20% of his power. He was like a strong insect stuck in a spider's web. He could only struggle on his deathbed. At this time, the Stone Puppet Emperor had already given up. It was good to buy some time for the others. However, he didn't expect that Yi Chen would choose to save him. Yi Chen, what are you doing? Leave quickly. Don't die. If Yi Chen had the power to save him, then so be it. However, no matter how strong he was, could he be strong enough to fight against the Death God Vine? The Stone Puppet Emperor didn't want Yi Chen to die because of him. He was already very satisfied that Yi Chen had such intentions. This young man was one of the most outstanding youths he had ever seen, whether it was in terms of potential or character. Don't worry. I haven't lived enough. Yi Chen had about 70 to 80% confidence. His confidence came from the space ultimacy. The Eternal Night Emperor sword was unsheathed. Yi Chen didn't have time to use his strongest move. He directly used the peak second transformation sword technique, Raging Spring Incineration. The fierce sword energy cut the vine apart, and cut off the connection between the stone puppet emperor and the vine. With the power of the Eternal Night Emperor sword, even if it was only the peak second transformation sword technique, Raging Spring Incineration, it would still be very powerful. This vine wasn't the main vine of the Death God vine. It was just a branch vine, so it wasn't difficult to cut it. The Death God vine's terrifying part was that it was entangled. Its toughness wasn't that terrifying. Of course, if it was the main vine, Yi Chen definitely wouldn't be able to cut it. It was too difficult. Go! Yi Chen's figure flashed. He grabbed the stone puppet emperor's shoulder and quickly fled. After breaking off the remaining vines, the stone puppet emperor felt like he had escaped from death. However, he knew that things weren't over yet. During this period of time, the Death God vine was much closer to them. That main vine was like a huge black dragon that stretched for tens of thousands of miles, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Those vines covered a large area, and were about to cover the two of them. So. Sure enough, 7 to 8 vines as thick as a human's wrist lashed out at the two of them. The speed was so fast that it was like an absolute whip technique performed by an expert. Be careful. Caught by Yi Chen, the stone puppet emperor couldn't retaliate at all. If he did, he would die even faster. However, he had underestimated Yi Chen. Yi Chen took a step forward with his right foot, and with a swoosh, not only did his speed increase, but his height also rose by 10 meters. The process was like teleportation, and the 7 or 8 vines struck nothing but air. Although 90% of his space profound couldn't allow Yi Chen to teleport, it could allow him to almost teleport. This was a kind of manipulation of space, a kind of borrowing power. Amazing! The stone golem emperor's eyes lit up. He thought that he was going to be chosen. With his control of space, Yi Chen dodged left and right, dodging the attacks of the vines by a hair's breadth. It was as if the attacks of the vines didn't exist in the same dimension as him. Gradually, Yi Chen caught up with the 3 in front. Although he was carrying one person, Yi Chen's speed was still a bit faster than the 3 in front. Close. The 5 of them approached the edge of the green continent one after the other. In the purple air current, lightning flashed like purple electric snakes. However, compared to the Death God vines behind them, these purple electric snakes weren't too dangerous. At worst, they could enter the Scarlet Wind battleship. With the Scarlet Wind battleship's frightening defense, normal purple lightning couldn't hurt them. Yi Chen, do your best, the Scarlet Wind battleship emperor, and the other 2 in front said quietly. They were in front, so they weren't in much danger. The Death God vines wouldn't attack them first. They were worried about the safety of Yi Chen and the stone puppet emperor. Swoosh. Suddenly, the air current in the air started spinning violently, like a calm lake being stirred up, which greatly affected everyone's speed. Not good, it's going to attack the main vine. Using their soul power, they saw the tens of thousands of miles long and hundreds of meters thick main vine fiercely lashing at them. Although the main vine was 2,000 miles away from Yi Chen, the countless vines on the main vine were like a huge net, covering the sky and covering the earth. They twisted the air current in the area into a mess, sometimes forming whirlpools, sometimes forming sharp air currents, and sometimes forming tornadoes. Go! There were too many vines. Yi Chen couldn't guarantee that he could dodge all of them, and he couldn't use his sword either. If he did, his speed would definitely be affected. With a thought, the silver snake sword on Yi Chen's waist automatically flew out of its sheath, turning into a beam of silver light, slashing towards the incoming vines. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Although the defensive sword art wasn't that powerful for Yi Chen right now, it wasn't like Yi Chen hadn't studied it before. He could already control the sword through the air and perform different sword arts. Of course, right now, he could only perform the second revolution sword art. He couldn't perform the third revolution sword art. There were still some differences between performing it through the air and performing it on his own. It was impossible to perform it exactly the same. Heaven, lightning, earth, fire. Raging fire, burning spring. Autumn, slaughter. 10,000 flowers snatch life. White dragon destroys the world. 5-second revolution sword arts were performed, especially the most powerful one. White dragon destroys the world. With a wave of his sword, A white dragon formed by sword chi pounced out, tearing a large number of vines apart and burning them, which helped Yi Chun win a chance of survival. Performing sword arts through the air. The Stone Emperor admired Yi Chun more and more. As a sword artist, Yi Chun was too amazing. Bang! Suddenly, a 10-meter-thick vine whipped the silver snake sword away. Their minds were connected, and Yi Chun's face paled. The defensive sword art had one disadvantage. It was easy to be affected, and his soul would be shaken. Fortunately, with his soul defense he could still endure it. Hastily putting away the silver snake sword, Yi Chun gritted his teeth and increased his speed again. With his naked eye, he could already see the edge of the green continent. Success or failure depended on this. Yi Chun put me down. With this distance, I can use a secret art to increase my speed. The Stone Emperor said. Yi Chun nodded and let go of the Stone Emperor's left hand. Before Yi Chun let go, the Stone Emperor's body was already burning with a bloody light. After Yi Chun let go, the Stone Emperor rode on the bloody light and flew forward. Its speed was actually not slower than Yi Chun's. Obviously, this was a secret art that consumed a lot of energy. With this secret art, the Stone Emperor's speed was comparable to Yi Chun's. Without the burden of the Stone Emperor, Yi Chun's movements became more agile. The feeling of being able to fly freely in the sky once again assaulted him. Ahead, the Scarlet Wind Emperor and the other two had already entered the purple chi flow. The Scarlet Wind Emperor took out the Scarlet Wind ship and started to store energy for the main cannon. Regardless of whether or not it could injure the Emperor-grade Death God Vine, the Scarlet Wind Emperor planned to vent his anger. 1,000 miles. 500 miles. 300 miles. Quickly dodge. The Scarlet Wind Emperor warned Yi Chun and the Stone Emperor. Swoosh. Yi Chun and the Stone Emperor quickly separated and entered the purple chi flow on the left and right. An extremely condensed scarlet light beam flashed between the two of them. Boom! In the next moment, a huge fireball exploded on the Emperor-grade Death God Vine's main vine. Visible to the naked eye, a hole appeared on the main vine. Die! The Scarlet Wind Emperor fired another cannon. Crack! The main vine suddenly broke, and the juice immediately evaporated. However, this completely infuriated the Emperor-grade Death God Vine. A strong vine that was dozens of meters thick charged into the purple chi flow and whipped the Scarlet Wind ship. The Scarlet Wind ship was sent flying. Its energy shield flickered a few times and was instantly extinguished. This vine that was dozens of meters thick could be considered one of the more important vines of the Emperor-grade Death God Vine. Its attack power was terrifying, and it directly broke the Scarlet Wind ship's energy shield. Without slowing down, the Emperor-grade Death God Vine also charged into the purple chi flow. Looking from the back, one could see that this Emperor-grade Death God Vine was a humanoid plant life form that was 10,000 meters tall. The main vine extended from its right arm, and it was getting thicker and thicker. It was many times bigger than its body. 7 vines that were dozens of meters thick extended from its left arm, and it was one of the vines that had whipped the Scarlet Wind ship. Crackle, crackle. The purple electric current was not particularly sensitive to Yi Chun and the others. However, as soon as the Emperor-grade Death God Vine charged in, the purple electric current immediately gathered and turned into thick lightning bolts that struck the Emperor-grade Death God Vine. In an instant, hundreds and thousands of lightning bolts struck it, causing green smoke to come out. With a scream, the Emperor-grade Death God Vine hurriedly retreated from the purple chi flow and returned to the green continent. Its body was charred black as if it was burnt. It looked rather pathetic. Haha, good job. On the Scarlet Wind ship, all 5 of them were present. When they saw this scene, they could not help but smile. Chapter 1190. Let's go. This Emperor-level Death God Vine clearly doesn't dare to enter the purple current. We can't kill it. Its life force is too strong. Snow Air Emperor said. Scarlet Wind Emperor nodded. The purple current is very sensitive to life. The stronger the life, the easier it is to be attacked by the purple current. It doesn't dare to enter. Then, Scarlet Wind Emperor piloted Scarlet Wind and flew into the depths of the purple current. Yi Chun, thank you. Inside the hall, Stone Statue Emperor thanked Yi Chen. Yi Chen said, "No problem. Since we are a team, we must help each other. If I encounter danger in the future, do your best to save me." He, of course. No matter what, I owe you my life. No one didn't value their life. Stone Statue Emperor was no exception. TSK. Fire Sparrow Emperor circled around Yi Chen, as if he wanted to find something. "What is it?" Yi Chen looked at Fire Sparrow Emperor. "I didn't expect you to be so loyal. You're qualified to be our friend." Fire Sparrow Emperor patted Yi Chen's shoulder and chuckled. Scarlet Wind Emperor teased. "Little Fire Sparrow, not only does Brother Sure owe Yi Chen a life, you also owe him a life." "I owe him a life? Why?" Fire Sparrow Emperor didn't understand. Snow Air Emperor said, "If it wasn't for Yi Chen stopping you, you would have gone to save Brother Sure first. What do you think your chances of survival are?" Hearing this, Fire Sparrow Emperor blushed. "Alright, I also owe him a life. But what about you guys? Aren't you going to help too?" The four were life and death friends, and they had experienced many dangers together. If not for Yi Chen, Scarlet Wind Emperor and Snow Emperor would have done their utmost to save Stone Puppet Emperor. They wouldn't have given up on him, and the final result would have been a complete wipeout. At that time, Stone Puppet Emperor knew that the three of them wanted to save him, which was why he told them not to be impulsive. "Haha, that's right. We all owe Yi Chen a life." Scarlet Wind Emperor laughed. "Not bad." The Snow Air Emperor nodded emotionally. Yi Chen laughed bitterly. "Is it that serious? I can save him, so I saved him. If I didn't have a 10% chance of success, I might not have saved him." Yi Chen was telling the truth. When he was not confident, he would think about himself first. After all, he still had his family and his woman waiting for him. However, what Yi Chen didn't know was that his honesty made the four of them admire him even more. This kind of person was very reassuring, unlike some people who like to show their good side and say things with confidence. "Let's go. It's not a good thing to always stay in the purple gas. This place is really strange. I've never seen it before." The Scarlet Wind went deeper and deeper into the purple gas flow, and the green continent could no longer be sensed. Crackle, crackle, crackle. The deeper they went into the purple gas flow, the more purple electric currents there were. Occasionally, purple electric currents would gather into lightning and strike the Scarlet Wind, creating circles of ripples. The five of them weren't worried about their safety while staying in the Scarlet Wind. The Scarlet Wind was an Emperor-class warship after all. Unless the purple lightning's attack power was much stronger than a low-tier monarch, or even a mid-tier monarch, it was impossible for it to break through the Scarlet Wind's energy barrier in one go. Of course, the Scarlet Wind was constantly being attacked. The Scarlet Wind expended essence stones very quickly. The 4 shots of the main cannons earlier had already expended 40 million essence stones. Currently, more than 50 million essence stones were not at home. If it wasn't for the fact that he was rich, another ordinary Tharch Realm monarch would definitely not be able to hold on. Scanning with his soul spirit, Yi Chen discovered that his soul spirit felt a little numb, as if it had been electrocuted. The good thing was that it was just numb. Not only was it not harmful, but it was also beneficial for tempering his soul spirit. It seemed like this purple electric current was more mystical than he had imagined. It was even effective for the soul spirit. And there are purple water droplets. Suddenly, Yi Chen's soul spirit detected some purple water droplets that were the size of water droplets. The purple water droplets were crystal clear and looked like liquid purple diamonds. The small ones were the size of sesame seeds, and the big ones were the size of peas. Occasionally, purple electric currents would surge out from the water droplets, and they would interact with the purple gas flow in the surroundings. Haha, there is indeed purple electric spiritual fluid. The Scarlet Wind Tharch laughed loudly and said in pleasant surprise, "Purple electric spiritual fluid? You mean these purple water droplets?" Yi Chen asked. The Stone Man Emperor explained, "Purple electric spiritual fluid is one of the specialties of the Violet Secret Realm. It can only be produced in these purple gas flows, but it is not everywhere. Previously, we were in the air above the green continent, And the higher we went, the denser the purple gas flows became. There is a possibility of producing purple electric spiritual fluid, but it is too dangerous. Unless you are an 8th sky sovereign, there is no way to collect it. But here, the purple gas flows are everywhere, and the danger level is far lower than in the air. It is completely possible to collect purple electric spiritual fluid. Oh right, I forgot to tell you about the effect of purple electric spiritual fluid. Purple electric spiritual fluid can temper the spirit body, and also the soul. It is even useful for healing soul injuries. If you can collect a large amount of purple electric spiritual fluid and bathe in it, the effect will be extraordinary. The Snow Air Emperor also said, purple electric spiritual fluid can temper the spirit body of a 7th sky sovereign. Of course, there is no effect at the late 7th sky sovereign. Late 7th sky sovereign? Yi Chen's spirit body was only at the peak of the 6th sky sovereign, far from the late 7th sky sovereign. The higher the spirit body, the harder it was to improve. Some rare refining treasures were no longer useful. This purple electric spiritual fluid came at the right time. This is a rare opportunity. Everyone, go out and collect purple electric spiritual fluid. I have already collected half a barrel of purple electric spiritual fluid. I wonder how much we can collect this time. The Scarlet Wind Emperor opened the cabin door and was the first to fly out. Then Yi Chen and the others also flew out. In a short while, Yi Chen had collected dozens of drops of purple electric spiritual fluid and stored them in a foot-high jade barrel. Don't look down on this jade barrel. It was made of 10,000-year-old spirit jade and spirit sealing stone. Yi Chen spent several million source stones to buy it. Before coming, Yi Chen was wondering why the Scarlet Wind Emperor and the others wanted him to prepare a jade barrel. Now he understood. Dozens of drops of purple electric spiritual fluid couldn't fill a small wine cup. It was far from enough. Yi Chen continued deeper. With his soul eye, as long as he didn't leave the 1 billion mile range, he didn't have to worry about getting lost. 100 drops, 300 drops, 500 drops. There was a lot of purple electric spiritual fluid in the purple chi current almost everywhere. Although each of them was small, there was a lot of it. However, Yi Chen discovered that his Zhen Yuan consumption was too severe. His defense was not low at the moment. High-grade Emperor-grade armor, 7th step Immortal protective sword intent, and Heaven-grade top-grade Green Lotus sword arts formed protective Zhen Yuan. Although Yi Chen wasn't at the peak among titled monarchs, he was still at the top. However, he was still a 6th-layer life and death realm, and his Zhen Yuan was not as dense and pure as titled monarchs. After collecting about 500 drops of purple electric spiritual fluid, Yi Chen sat cross-legged in the purple chi current and began using a large amount of source stones to recover his Zhen Yuan. Chapter 1191. The higher one's cultivation was, the more primordial stones he needed to recover his Zhen Yuan. After consuming 6 to 7 million primordial stones, Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan was soon replenished, and he could continue collecting. This collection process took an entire week. On the first day, he collected the most purple lightning spirit liquid, more than 2,300 drops. On the second day, it dropped slightly to 2,000 drops. On the third day, it dropped drastically to less than 1,000 drops. On the fourth day, it was also 1,000 drops. On the fifth day, it dropped by half again to 500 drops. Fortunately, it increased again on the sixth day, reaching 1,100 drops. On the last day, Yi Chen's luck exploded. Although he only collected 1,000 drops, it included a potato-sized ball of purple lightning spirit liquid, which was more than the previous days. After 7 days, Yi Chen's harvest was not bad. The foot-high bucket contained 1/8 of the purple lightning spirit liquid, which was about 1.5 inches deep. However, there was no purple lightning spirit liquid left in the purple chi flow. Even if there was, it was scattered everywhere, and not worth collecting. After all, Yi Chen had to consume Zhen Yuan every second. Just the primordial stones alone had been used up by tens of millions. It was simply a bottomless pit. Haha, how are your results? Do you want to compete? Returning to the Scarlet Wind ship, The five placed the buckets on the table in the hall, and the Scarlet Wind Emperor smiled. Let's compete then. The Fire Sparrow Emperor opened the lid of the bucket. Purple lightning flashed inside, and the spirit chi was oppressive. It seemed to be about 2 inches deep, more than half of Yi Chen's. Comparing them, the Fire Sparrow Emperor had the most, followed by the Stone Man Emperor, Scarlet Wind Emperor, and Snow Air Emperor. Yi Chen had the least, mainly because Yi Chen's cultivation was not as deep as theirs, and he needed to recover Zhen Yuan frequently. If not for the potato-sized ball of purple lightning spirit liquid on the last day, it would have been even less. This time, the five had not only collected the purple lightning spirit liquid, but also found the edge of the purple chi flow. Next, the Scarlet Wind Emperor drove the ship to the edge of the purple chi flow. What came into view was an incomparably majestic mountain peak. It was unknown how tall it was. Above the mountainside, it was completely covered by the purple airflow, layer upon layer. Below the mountainside, there was a white waterfall that was 3,000 feet wide cascading down, making a loud rumbling sound, as if the world was being split apart. As for the two sides of the mountain peak, there were gusts of purple wind mixed with purple thunderbolts. From the looks of it, it seemed to be very lethal. Look, there's a cave behind the waterfall. Fire Sparrow Emperor pointed at the white waterfall. And everyone be careful. Without hesitation, the Scarlet Wind chi flow. Boom! The waves exploded as Scarlet Wind passed through the waterfall and arrived outside the cave. The cave was huge. It was nearly 800 meters tall and 3,000 meters wide. It was enough for the Scarlet Wind to fly inside. The cave twisted and turned. Some parts were very wide, while others were very narrow. It was pitch black inside, and there was no other sound other than the sound of Scarlet Wind slowly flying through the air. After flying for an unknown period of time, a ray of light finally appeared in front of them. The light grew brighter and more dazzling. Finally, Scarlet Wind flew out of the cave. It's a grassland. Everyone felt a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. Although there was a purple airflow in the sky above the grassland, the purple airflow was very high. Through the purple airflow, a gentle light shone down. The vast grassland was boundless. When the wind blew, layers of green ripples spread towards the edge. It made people feel relaxed and happy, and they wanted to shout out loud. There are quite a lot of people, Yi Chen said. There are quite a few. What are these people doing? Emperor Shuekong asked curiously. On the prairie within sight alone, there were dozens of silhouettes. These people seemed to be fighting over something, and battles broke out from time to time. Dazzling shockwaves radiated in all directions, swirling up grass fragments. However, no one used their battleships to attack each other. The puppet cannons on the battleships could only attack in a straight line, which was not enough to be used in battle. After all, others would not just stand there and let you hit them, and they were not as huge as the Emperor-class Reaper Vines. Let's go and take a look first. The Scarlet Wind battleship quickly flew over. When it passed by a battlefield, the five of them finally saw what they were fighting for. In the air, a colorful bead was suspended there, radiating light in all directions. There were two groups around it, the Yiksha race and the Greenman race. The two groups were fighting. Although the Yiksha race and the Greenman race were both members of the Devil Race's alliance, they would only gather together when they were fighting against the human race. Normally, they would fight each other for treasures, just like the internal strife of the human race. If there was a treasure, who would be willing to give it up? Both sides wanted to snatch the five-colored pearl. Fortunately, the five-colored pearl was very special and could not be destroyed. Strange, what kind of treasure is this five-colored pearl? Fire Sparrow Emperor touched his chin. No matter what, let's snatch one first. Scarlet Wind Emperor saw that it was the Yiksha race and the Greenman race. Scarlet Wind's main cannon began to accumulate energy. A moment later, 2 extremely condensed scarlet light beams and 22 lighter scarlet light beams shot out densely. Boom, boom, boom. Shockwaves spread in all directions. One of the Greenman race's Thearchs was actually blasted to death. The others could not dodge in time, and were all sent flying by the shockwaves. It's mine. Scarlet Wind swept past the five-colored pearl. and it landed in the Scarlet Wind Emperor's hand. Courting death. Let's join forces and kill them. At this moment, the Wuxia race and Greenman race's Thearchs were infuriated. They joined forces to attack Scarlet Wind. However, the Scarlet Wind's defensive barrier was not something they could break. Bastard, this is an Emperor-class warship. One of the Greenman race's Thearchs gritted his teeth. Haha, let's snatch as many pearls as there are. When the time comes, we will split them evenly. The Scarlet Wind Emperor was extremely arrogant. Among titled monarchs, there were very few who had an Imperial-class battleship. He had obtained the Scarlet Wind battleship by chance in a mystic realm. With the Scarlet Wind battleship, he could completely ignore the attacks of titled monarchs. In terms of defense, the Scarlet Wind battleship was much stronger than a low-grade Imperial-class armor. It could even be compared to a middle-grade Imperial-class armor. Furthermore, an Imperial-class armor consumed its own energy, while the Scarlet Wind battleship consumed essence stones. 5 pearls, 10 pearls, 20 pearls. Relying on the Scarlet Wind Emperor, the 5 of them snatched a total of 25 colored pearls. Each of them had 4 pearls, but they had also angered a group of people. A large group of Wuxia race, Greenman race, and Demons race's Thearchs chased after them. The 5 of them did not snatch the pearls from the human race or the demon race. Boom boom boom. 10s to 100 attacks landed on the Scarlet Wind Emperor. The Scarlet Wind Emperor shook, and it could not increase its speed. In a short while, the Scarlet Wind Emperor was surrounded by more than 100 alien Thearchs. It's time to show our true strength. At this time, the Scarlet Wind Emperor was already useless. Although the other party could not break the defensive barrier, they could trap the Scarlet Wind Emperor and prevent it from leaving. The cabin door opened, and the 5 of them flew out. They are out. Kill them. Seeing the 5 of them come out, the 100 alien Thearchs revealed sinister smiles as they attacked. Chapter 1192. The attacks of over 100 titled monarchs were extremely terrifying. Even if a normal titled monarch was wearing a high-level Thearch-class armor, they would still be blasted apart. Blazing Divine Wind extinguish. The Scarlet Wind Emperor's weapon was actually a fiery red iron fan. When the fan was opened, a giant spirit was carved on it. The giant spirit was surrounded by flames, and it held the fiery red iron fan in its hand. The Scarlet Wind Emperor used his killing move and fanned out violently. Instantly, a 3-colored light swept out and destroyed more than 10 attacks. Only 7 or 8 attacks actually landed on the Scarlet Wind Emperor's body. They couldn't break through his defense at all. The Snow Air Emperor was the weakest among the 5. But she was still a 3-star general. She raised both her palms, and cold air spread out in all directions as she pushed out violently. Ice Seal Freeze. Ka. A large amount of energy attacks were frozen. Even if the attacks broke through the ice, their power would be reduced by a lot. The Snow Air Emperor's armor was obviously not ordinary. It was actually a top-notch Thearch-class armor. In the Golden Armor Star Treasure Pagoda, if one wanted to buy a top-notch Thearch-class armor, one had to have a foreign race's 4-star general badge. The Scarlet Wind Emperor probably killed a foreign race's 4-star general and gave the badge to the Snow Air Emperor. After all, who wouldn't care about the safety of their girlfriend? Apart from Yi Chen, the Stone Man Emperor was the strongest among the 4. His attacks were big and powerful. Metal, earth, and wood profundities fused into one fist and attacked the most concentrated point. Boom! Almost 20 attacks were destroyed by the Stone Man Emperor's fist. Less than 5 attacks landed on the Stone Man Emperor's body. The Stone Man Emperor's forte was actually his defense. Together with the top-notch Thearch-class armor, these attacks were like tickles to him. Fiery red tyrant body, Phoenix dances in the 9 heavens. The Fire Sparrow Emperor's entire body emitted a red light, making her look like a goddess of war. Her weapon was a flaming long spear, and with a sweep of the long spear, a boundless chi surged out, transforming into a soaring fire phoenix. With a flap of the fire phoenix's wings, dozens of attacks were annihilated, and the remaining attacks landed on the Fire Sparrow Emperor's body, making tinkling sounds. She didn't even have the qualifications to move. There were also quite a number of attacks heading towards Yi Chen. There were a total of 22 attacks. Although these 22 attacks had different elements and moves, and could not be combined together. With so many killing moves being launched at the same time, the pressure they gave off was not just a little bit. Ordinary Thear-cranked monarchs probably would not even have the space to dodge. However, Yi Chen was no ordinary Tharch king. The Eternal Night Emperor sword was unsheathed, and Yi Chen slashed out. The ferocious black flame wave looked as though it was going to devour the entire heaven and earth. With a fierce pounce, all the attacks were extinguished. But this wasn't the end. The black flame wave's aftershock was even stronger. After extinguishing 22 attacks, the remaining force didn't dissipate. It swept towards the 22 people who had attacked. Within the flame wave, countless black sword light could be faintly seen. Peak 3rd Revolution sword art, true Inferno sword. What? No. These 22 people didn't expect Yi Chen's attack to be so strong. Not only did it extinguish their killing moves, but it still swept over. They couldn't even react in time. In the next instant, the black flame wave engulfed them. With puffing sounds, they turned into ashes one after another. In the end, only 7 people survived. These 7 people's armors weren't low-level. They were all mid-level or high-level Thear-cranked armors. Amazing! The Scarlet Wind Emperor gave Yi Chen a thumbs up. Yi Chen's strength was already at the peak among the 5-star generals. I'm afraid it will be hard to return the favor of saving my life. The Stone Puppet Emperor also didn't expect Yi Chen to be stronger than he had imagined. This sword move was clearly a peak 3rd Revolution sword art, and the sword intent was even more terrifying. The destructive aura was earth-shattering. Kill! After withstanding the first wave of attacks, it was the Scarlet Wind Emperor, and the others turned to counterattack. The Scarlet Wind Emperor's figure flashed like a gentle breeze blowing across the earth, nourishing everything silently. However, his attacks weren't silent. The sky was filled with tricolored light, like a tricolored divine blade, crazily slashing. Each slash would inevitably kill 2 or 3 people. The Snow Air Emperor's ice domain covered a huge area. The wantonly frigid palm attacks were sent out one after another. As long as one touched a little bit, their body would be covered with a layer of frost, and their movements would be restricted. Then they would be shattered by the palm energy. Both the Stone Puppet Emperor and the Fire Sparrow Emperor were the type to attack openly. The two of them didn't care about their own defense, and directly charged into the enemy's group. If the enemy wanted to fight with them, it would be best to kill them directly. If the enemy didn't, they would attack without restraint. They were like 2 killing gods, killing their enemies until ghosts cried and wolves howled. As for Yi Chen's side, there was no suspense at all. After using the true Inferno sword, Yi Chen immediately used the more domineering and masculine Sun Essence Extreme Transformation. A black sun first appeared in the sky, and it was destroyed by the sword energy, turning into a dazzling black sword light that slashed out. Bang 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 bang. 4 explosions sounded out, and 4 enemies fell. Only 3 wearing high-class monarch armor were left. These 3 were not weak, and they all had the strength of 4-star generals. They weren't cannon fodder. However, they were already terrified. Yi Chen's strength was almost 100 times stronger than theirs, and that terrifying sword intent also made their minds feel very pressured. Run! The 4 of them started to run at the same time, increasing the distance between them to avoid being implicated. Want to run? Yi Chen's eyes seemed to see through time and space. Pooh! He stabbed out with his sword, and the wave of nothingness spread out. Then 2 brilliant fireworks exploded. The last person had already escaped tens of thousands of miles away with this opportunity. Unfortunately, this distance was still not enough. Without looking, Yi Chen stabbed out with his sword again, and the sword energy merged into the void. Bang! The brilliant fireworks bloomed again. 4th Revolution sword art, moment of glory. Without momentary glory, Yi Chen would still be one of the top 5-star generals. If he still had 6 stars, then he would be a 6-star purple gold commander, or even a 7-star purple gold commander. But with his 4th change sword art, momentary glory, Yi Chen's attacking power would be able to compete with low-rank emperor warriors. It would only be the other aspects that he would not be able to compete with. While Yichen quickly finished off his opponents, the Scarlet Wind Emperor, and the other three were not finished yet. Yichen didn't go to help, because he didn't need help. His palm continuously sucked in the spoils of war. There were 15 low-grade Emperor-grade armors, 4 mid-grade Emperor-grade armors, and 3 high-grade Emperor-grade armors. The weapons and armors were of average grade, ranging from low-grade Emperor-grade to high-grade Emperor-grade. Apart from that, there were also 22 storage rings. It was unknown whether these 22 people carried the majority of their wealth with them or not. These 5 are too strong, 5 against 100, and they were actually beaten so badly. Fortunately, they are of our human race. Fortunately, we are also of the beast race, on the same side as the human race. But that sword artist is too strong. He seems to only have a cultivation base of 6th layer life and death realm. The last 2 sword strikes were simply unfathomable, and the 3 died silently. Such a frightening sword art is not something ordinary people can imagine. On the prairie, many titled monarchs of the human race and beast race were watching. They originally planned to come over and help, but now it seemed like there was no need. Chapter 1193. In just a short while, only 30 to 40 of the more than 100 alien-titled monarchs were left. These 30 to 40 alien-titled monarchs felt that something was amiss, as they frantically tried to escape. What they did not expect was that the surrounding humans and demons had already set up an inescapable trap, not giving them any way out. Total annihilation. In the end, more than 100 monarchs were all dead. And all of this was caused by just 5 people. Although the last 30 to 40 foreign race titled monarchs were mostly killed by the human race and demon race titled monarchs, these people did not dare to take the spoils of war for themselves. They were prepared to hand them over to the Scarlet Wind Arch and company. The Scarlet Wind Arch waved his hand. How can I return something that is already in my hands? Keep it. He didn't care about the ordinary mid-grade monarch rank artifacts. At his level, his wealth was beyond the imagination of normal monarchs. May I ask, what is the use of the 5 color pearls? Snow Air Emperor asked. A human old man walked out and answered. The 5 color pearls are formed by the heaven and earth rules of the prairie. I heard from the first batch of people that no one has been here for a long time. Before they came, there were a lot of 5 color pearls, but each person could only get 5. At the end of the prairie, there is a heaven and earth barrier that cannot be broken by force. One can only enter with 5 color pearls. A 5 color pearl can only enter the heaven and earth barrier for about 2 hours. If you don't have a 5 color pearl, you will be expelled. However, there are fewer and fewer 5 color pearls on the prairie. That's why everyone is fighting for them. And for some reason, more and more people are coming here. There are humans, demons, and even foreign races. I see. These 5 color pearls should be like keys, and have a time limit. Stone Man Emperor nodded. Heaven and earth barrier? Releasing his soul power, Yichen saw that there was indeed a heaven and earth barrier at the end of the prairie. It was 5-colored and overflowing with light. Not a single 5-color pearl was left. Luckily, each of them had 4, one less than the 5. They should be able to stay inside the heaven and earth barrier for 10 hours. Let's go take a look. Scarlet Wind Emperor piloted Scarlet Wind and flew towards the heaven and earth barrier. After flying for a long time, Scarlet Wind finally reached the heaven and earth barrier. Let's see how the defense of the barrier is like. The Scarlet Wind Emperor boldly began to accumulate energy for the main cannon. Not long after, the main cannon was fully charged. Boom! The Scarlet Wind battleship trembled, and an incomparably condensed scarlet red light pillar blasted toward the barrier of heaven and earth. Like a clay ox entering the sea, the scarlet red light beam instantly disappeared into the barrier of heaven and earth. However, this wasn't the end. The next moment, a scarlet red light beam was reflected back and bombarded the Scarlet Wind. The barrier of heaven and earth could actually absorb energy and counterattack. Gotcha! Without any suspense, Scarlet Wind's defense shield was torn apart. Fortunately, after the defense shield was torn apart, the scarlet light pillar's power was almost non-existent. Otherwise, Scarlet Wind would have been pierced through. That was close. The Scarlet Wind Emperor wiped his sweat with lingering fear. Looks like I can only rely on the 5 colored pearls, the Snow Air Emperor said. In terms of attack power, the Scarlet Wind battleship's main cannon's attack power was more than 100 times that of the rest. If the main cannon couldn't blast it apart, there was nothing they could do. Perhaps a true 8th level Heaven Sovereign could enter the barrier without relying on the 5 colored pearls, but they clearly hadn't reached that realm yet. They could only obediently follow the rules. After getting off the Scarlet Wind battleship, the 5 of them each held a 5 colored pearl and flew toward the barrier. Buzz! The moment they approached the barrier, the 5 colored pearls shone brightly, and a 5 colored halo enveloped the 5 of them. With the 5 colored halo, the 5 of them entered the barrier. The barrier was very deep and thick. After 5 minutes, they passed through the barrier and arrived at a new world. What a dense spirit chi! The new world was a mountain range that looked like an immortal realm. The dense spirit chi was extremely moist. Taking a deep breath was like refining hundreds or thousands of supreme-grade spirit stones. Taking a few more breaths was probably comparable to a primordial stone. Looking over, the mountain range was hidden in layers of clouds, and the ground couldn't be seen. They couldn't even see halfway down the mountain. It didn't look like an immortal realm, but it was better than an immortal realm. They've all been plucked. After passing by a few mountain peaks that were shrouded in clouds, the 5 of them couldn't help but shake their heads. Although there were many spirit herbs on the mountain peaks, they were all ordinary spirit herbs. After careful observation, it was obvious that some of the spots with the densest spirit chi weren't plucked at all. Even if they used their lower bodies to guess, they would still be able to guess that someone had already taken them. Every time they passed by a mountain peak, the 5 of them would shake their heads. What a pity! In their hearts, they were guessing what precious spirit herbs and treasures the first batch of people had obtained. This group of bastards, they didn't even leave anything behind. The Scarlet Wind Emperor muttered to himself. After passing by mountain peak after mountain peak, Yi Chen's group finally found some fish that had escaped the net. The Scarlet Wind Emperor obtained 3 stalks of mature heaven aromatic grass. The heaven aromatic grass was a heavenly king-grade spirit herb. After being ignited, it would produce a very mystical fragrance. Smelling this fragrance, one's thoughts would become extremely clear. Many things that couldn't be figured out in the past would suddenly become clear, and it would greatly increase one's comprehension ability. The Snow Air Emperor obtained 2 stalks of ice heart grass. Ice heart grass could raise one's spirit, and it was quite beneficial for cultivating soul arts. The Flaming Sparrow Emperor had obtained a fire jade tree sapling. The fire jade tree was a heavenly king stage spirit tree, and once it fully matured, it would bear fire jade fruits, which were extremely useful for cultivating fire attribute energies. Most importantly, it would not harm one's foundation, and using the fire jade fruits to break through to the next stage would allow one to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Stone Emperor and Yi Chen didn't obtain anything useful for themselves. The Stone Emperor obtained a huge gourd, which had its own space inside and could nurture treasures. Unfortunately, although this gourd was precious, it was a heavenly king grade and not an emperor grade. Otherwise, it would be very useful. As for Yi Chen, he obtained 4 stalks of demonic king grass. Although they were useless to him, they were extremely useful to the dream-eating wolf, helping him stabilize his foundation and charge into the next realm. Currently, the dream-eating wolf was at the 3rd layer of life and death realm. 4 stalks of demonic king grass were enough for him to charge into the 4th layer. Finally, the 5 arrived in front of the only mountain that hadn't been looted. The reason why this mountain hadn't been looted was because it was protected by the mountain guarding great array. The lingering clouds seemed to have spirituality, sometimes turning into dragons, sometimes into fierce tigers, sometimes into fierce birds, and sometimes into tortoises. This is the 4 symbols great array. It's actually protected by the 4 symbols great array. The Stone Golem Emperor immediately recognized the formation. The Snow Air Emperor said, "With the protection of the 4 symbols great array, it's no wonder those people couldn't enter. But this is actually advantageous to us. As long as we can break through the four symbols great array, all the treasures on the mountain will belong to us. The four symbols great array was one of the peak emperor great arrays. Normally, only low-level emperors could break through it. Chapter 1194. In the mountains, the roars of dragons and tigers could be heard continuously. As expected of the four symbols formation, we've been attacking it for 2 hours, but we still can't break it. It was Yi Chen's first time seeing a Thearch level formation, so he didn't understand it. Logically speaking, his attack power was equivalent to the weakest low-level emperor stage. He thought it wouldn't be difficult to break the four symbols formation, but the result was clearly different from what he had imagined. The four symbols formation not only had strong defense, but it could also transform into four symbols chi to counterattack. If this continued, they probably wouldn't be able to break it even after another 4 hours. The Scarlet Wind Emperor said, "We can easily break a normal Thearch level formation, but the four symbols formation is one of the top Thearch level formations. Even a low-level Emperor stage cultivator would need a long time to break it. A Thearch level formation is equivalent to the power of many titled monarchs, and a top Thearch level formation is equivalent to the power of many emperors. Its defense is obvious. However, I didn't expect the four symbols formation's defense to be so terrifying. If there was no time limit, it wouldn't matter if it took a long time, but we only have 4 rainbow pearls. What should we do? We still have 4 hours. Also, after breaking the formation, it will take some time to find and collect spirit herbs." The Stone Man Emperor frowned. The Snow Air Emperor said, "Langfeng, why don't you use your Scarlet Wind? With the power of the Scarlet Wind's main cannons, it won't take long to break the four symbols formation." "Yes, use the Scarlet Wind. Didn't you use it very diligently before?" The Fire Sparrow Emperor glanced at the Scarlet Wind Emperor. The Scarlet Wind Emperor said with a bitter face, "Even though I'm rich, I can't afford to go through so much trouble. A single blast from the 2 main cannons of the Scarlet Wind ship costs 20 million origin stones. With the defensive power of the four symbols great array, I reckon that it won't be broken without over 100 cannons. That's 2 billion origin stones. Say so earlier. Each of us will support you with 500 million. That should be enough, right?" The Fire Sparrow Emperor rolled his eyes. "Yi Chen, I'll help you." The Stone Man Emperor said to Yi Chen, "No need, I still have 500 million yuan stones." Yi Chen shook his head. 500 million primordial stones was nothing to him. Perhaps he could not compare to those 8th heavenly sovereigns, but among the 7th heavenly sovereigns, there were not many who were richer than him. However, Yi Chen clearly couldn't stop the Stone Man Emperor's determination. If he continued to decline, it would only make the Stone Man Emperor unhappy. So Yi Chen didn't argue any further. "All right then." Yi Chen nodded. With everyone's support, the Scarlet Wind Emperor took out the Scarlet Wind ship. In the beginning, no one thought of using the Scarlet Wind ship, because they thought that with the power of 5 people, they should be able to break through the four symbols formation within 4 hours. After all, Yi Chen's attack was close to or equivalent to a beginner heavenly sovereign. They had the mentality of being lucky, so they couldn't blame the Scarlet Wind Emperor for being stingy. The Scarlet Wind Emperor indeed didn't have that many primordial stones to spend. Ever since he had the Scarlet Wind ship, the speed at which he used primordial stones was much faster than before. It was simply a bottomless pit. After all, it was 10 million today, 20 million tomorrow, and 30 million the day after. No matter how much wealth he had, it wasn't enough. If it wasn't for the fact that he earned primordial stones very quickly, he wouldn't have been able to make ends meet. The Scarlet Wind ship's main cannons didn't take long to accumulate primordial stones. After about 30 breaths, the 2 main cannons launched their first attack. The Scarlet Wind ship violently trembled, and 2 scarlet-red pillars of light shattered the four symbols chi energy, heavily bombarding the outer walls of the four symbols formation. As the earth shook, 2 fireballs exploded, and shockwaves swept in all directions. 1 attack, 2 attacks, 10 attacks, 50 attacks, 100 attacks. The four symbols great array was becoming more and more unstable. Occasionally, the 5 of them would be able to see through the distorted outer walls of the array and see what was going on inside. Inside, there was a myriad of colors and dazzling spiritual lights. Spirit grasses were growing vigorously, and some of them were even emitting astonishing emperor chi. They stood out like cranes among chickens. Emperor-grade spirit grasses had different values. The lower ones might be worth several million yuan stones, while the higher ones might even be worth hundreds of millions of yuan stones. As long as there were 100 emperor-grade spirit grasses inside the 4 symbols grade array, the 5 wouldn't have suffered a loss. Of course, with the protection of the 4 symbols grade array, the 5 couldn't believe that there were only 100 emperor-grade spirit grasses inside, not to mention the countless heavenly king-grade spirit grasses. Bang! 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 The Scarlet Wind ship's main cannons were still firing. Each attack cost 20 million yuan stones, which was enough to make many 6th layer life and death realm heavenly kings go bankrupt. Finally, when Scarlet Wind's main cannon fired for the 132nd time, the 4 symbols great array was broken. Without the restraint of the 4 symbols great array, the true appearance of the mountain was revealed. It was an ancient mountain that was millions of meters tall and occupied thousands of square kilometers. Multicolored lights flickered on the huge mountain, almost blinding people's eyes. There was simply no need to use soul power to sense. Just the places with the densest spirit chi numbered in the hundreds. Many of them were so dense that it made one's hair stand on end, giving off the noble aura of a monarch. Seems like the 2,600,000,000 yuan stones were not wasted. The Scarlet Wind Emperor muttered. Originally, he was still wondering whether the harvest from the 4 symbols great array could make up for the loss. But now he didn't need to worry. Each person's harvest would be no less than 1 or 2 billion yuan. So many fire attribute spirit grasses. The Fire Sparrow Emperor was the most sensitive to fire attribute spirit grasses. Sucking in a few deep breaths, the Snow Air Emperor said, "This mountain is several hundred times bigger than I imagined. How about we split up and harvest the spirit grasses?" I agree as well. The mountain was huge, and it was unreasonable to gather them together. Splitting up was more suitable for everyone. Just like that, the 5 separated. The spirit chi on the mountain was too dense, affecting soul power perception. Yichen could only rely on the intensity of the spirit chi to distinguish the precious spirit grasses. This is Origin Emperor Grass. There are actually 10 of them. Origin Emperor Grass was one of the Emperor-grade spirit grasses. It had a great effect on recovering Zhen Yuan. A mature Origin Emperor Grass could replenish the Zhen Yuan of a 7th layer titled Monarch in 10 breaths. One stalk was worth at least several dozen million yuan stones. After all, even a 7th layer titled Monarch would need several dozen million yuan stones to replenish Zhen Yuan. For example, Yi Chen, who was only at the 6th layer of life and death realm, needed 8 million yuan stones to replenish his Zhen Yuan. Of course, Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan was too dense and pure. An ordinary 6th layer life and death realm monarch would need less than 1,000,000 yuan stones to replenish his Zhen Yuan. This is Ice Soul Grass. There are also 9 of them. The effect of Ice Soul Grass was similar to the Ice Heart Grass Snow Air Emperor had previously obtained. It could also raise one's spirit, and was very beneficial to cultivating soul secret arts. However, in terms of effect, Ice Soul Grass was 100 times better than Ice Heart Grass. This was because Ice Heart Grass was a Heavenly King grade spirit grass, while Ice Soul Grass was an Emperor grade spirit grass. With Ice Soul Grass, Yi Chen was confident that he could cultivate his soul ring to the highest purple soul ring realm in a short time. At the same time, he planned to cultivate another soul attack secret art. However, the premise was that he could obtain some Emperor-grade spirit grasses to replenish soul power. Otherwise, he wouldn't have enough soul power. The higher one's realm, the greater the disparity. In the past, Yi Chen's soul power was 10 times that of ordinary people. The advantage was clear. However, there was a chasm between the 6th and 7th layer. Once one broke through to the 7th layer, one's soul power would explode. Even Yi Chen couldn't compare. Therefore, Emperor-grade soul secret arts were more suitable for titled monarchs. only they had sufficient soul power. Chapter 1195. In less than 2 hours, Yi Chen had collected thousands of Heavenly King-grade spirit grasses, and over 100 Emperor-grade spirit grasses. Among the Heavenly King-grade spirit grasses, there were 36 Heavenly King-grade spirit trees, and 2 Emperor-grade spirit trees. Leaving aside the Heavenly King-grade spirit grasses, each Emperor-grade spirit grasses had an astonishing value, especially the 2 Emperor-grade spirit trees. They were the 7-star fruit tree and the Starry Sky Path Understanding tree. The 7-star fruit tree bloomed once every 500 years and bore fruit once every 500 years. The 7-star fruit had the effect of replenishing Zhen Yuan. Normally, 10 7-star fruits were enough to replenish the Zhen Yuan of a 7th layer titled monarch, and the 7-star fruit tree would bear at least several tens of thousands of fruits. At this moment, the branches of this 7-star fruit tree were filled with flowers. It wouldn't be more than 500 years before it bore fruit. The Starry Sky Path Understanding tree, as its name suggested, was extremely helpful in comprehending the Tao. Cultivating sword arts under the tree would increase one's speed by 10 to 100 times, and the chances of breaking through bottlenecks would also be higher. With so many spirit grasses, it would be hard to do without a plant ring. However, Yi Chen had already bought a supreme-grade plant ring. Plant rings were the same as storage rings. They were divided into low-grade, mid-grade, upper-grade, and supreme-grade. Low-grade plant rings usually wouldn't exceed 100 mu, mid-grade wouldn't exceed 1,000 mu, and upper-grade wouldn't exceed 10,000 mu. As for supreme-grade, it was hard to say. In any case, the bigger the better. The supreme-grade plant ring that Yi Chen had bought had a space of 50 million mu, which was almost equivalent to a small plane. It was more than 150 miles long and wide. As long as there weren't any super large spiritual trees, it could completely accommodate a large number of spiritual herbs. There were mountains, rivers, a sun made from supreme-grade sunstones, a moon made from supreme-grade moonstones, a mist made from supreme-grade cloud mist stones, and a whirlwind made from supreme-grade wind thunder stones. When the whirlwind collided with the mist, it would form thunder and lightning, followed by a spiritual rain. All in all, the ecosystem of the supreme-grade plant ring was very complete. Most importantly, the spiritual energy inside was very abundant. Yi Chen had buried billions of yuan stones underground, forming a yuan stone mine. In addition, the plant ring itself could absorb energy from the void, not just from yuan stones. After planting a large number of Heavenly King and Emperor herbs in the plant ring, Yi Chen continued to search for undiscovered herbs. Time passed by bit. Soon, 6 hours had passed from the original 8 hours. There was only 1 hour left. There are more than 5,000 Heavenly King herbs and 150 Emperor herbs. My initial estimate is that the harvest is at least 20 billion yuan stones. Especially the 7-star fruit tree and the Starry Sky Path Understanding tree. These 2 Emperor herbs are worth no less than 20 billion yuan stones. The rest are not even worth a fraction of that. It was hard to say how valuable the Starry Sky Path Understanding tree was. Yi Chen had no way of estimating how precious the 7-star fruit tree was. Based on his calculations, as long as the 7-star fruit tree bore fruit, one fruit would be worth a few million yuan stones. 10,000 of them would be worth tens of billions. If it wasn't for the fact that it took 500 years to bloom and 500 years to bear fruit, its value would be 10 times higher. Of course, the 36 Heavenly King herbs were not cheap either. Altogether, they would be worth a few 100 million yuan stones. Among the spiritual herbs, spiritual trees were always the king. They were worth 1,000 times more than spiritual herbs of the same level. In the center of the huge mountain, there was a valley. Soon Yi Chen arrived outside the valley. The entrance to the valley was shrouded in a layer of purple light. It should be a restriction. Besides Yi Chen, Scarlet Wind Emperor, Air Emperor, and Stone Man Emperor were all here. Only the Fire Sparrow Emperor was missing. Yi Chen, how was the harvest? Scarlet Wind Emperor chuckled. Yi Chen said, not bad. I didn't come in vain. He believed that he was not the only one who had a great harvest. The Scarlet Wind Emperor and the others definitely had a great harvest. Perhaps even more than him. As for how great the harvest was, only he knew. Yeah, I didn't come in vain. Now there's only this valley left. Scarlet Wind Emperor grinned. The harvest this time was too great. 6 billion yuan stones. The 5 of them divided it equally. Each of them had spent more than 500 million yuan stones. But the harvest was dozens of times more than 500 million yuan stones. Not only did they not come in vain, they earned like crazy. Ever since he was born, he had never encountered such a fortuitous encounter. After a while, the Fire Sparrow Emperor also arrived. All right, since everyone is here, let's divide the things in this valley equally. The purple light at the entrance was a restriction. One person definitely could not break it. It required 5 people to work together. Of course, Scarlet Wind Emperor Scarlet Wind could do it, but he didn't think it was necessary. This restriction was far inferior to the 4 symbols' great formation. Using the Scarlet Wind ship was too wasteful. Also, it was not good for one person to eat alone. Although the others wouldn't say it, if they wanted to cooperate for a long time, it was best to know how to share. Otherwise, if everyone wanted to eat alone, it would be better to split up. There was no need to cooperate. With the 5 of them working together, it only took 15 minutes to break the purple light. The purple light scattered, and the 5 of them instantly saw everything in the valley. There was a spiritual herb garden in the middle of the valley. It was about 100 acres in size, and it was filled with foot-tall, sparkling, and translucent purple spiritual herbs. A dense purple aura gushed out from the entrance of the valley. Immediately, the 5 of them felt as if their souls were bathing in a mountain spring, extremely refreshing and transparent. This is... Scarlet Wind Emperor's mouth opened wide. It's the Violet Flower Immortal Herb Garden. Stone Puppet Emperor said word by word. Fire Sparrow Emperor's eyes opened wide. I didn't think that the Violet Flower Secret Realm really had a Violet Flower Immortal Herb Garden. How many are there? A few hundred? A few thousand? The Violet Flower Immortal Herb Garden was 100 acres. But the Violet Flower Immortal Herb was very sparse. There was only one Violet Flower Immortal Herb every few meters. But no matter how sparse it was still 100 acres. How could there be so few of them? With so many Violet Flower Immortal Herbs, it is enough for me to use an Emperor-class soul attack secret technique. The first thing that came to Yi Chen's mind was an Emperor-class soul attack secret technique. The soul defense secret technique had the soul ring, but the soul attack secret technique only had the soul sword chi. Although the soul sword chi was comprehended from the divine monument, Yi Chen's attainments in soul secret techniques weren't high at that time. He didn't have anything to learn from. At most, the soul sword chi was equivalent to a Heavenly King soul attack secret technique. Even so, with Yi Chen's soul talent that was 10 times that of a normal king, the soul sword chi that he used was not to be underestimated. It was equivalent to an Emperor-class soul attack secret technique. If he could cultivate a peak Emperor-class soul attack secret technique, its power could be imagined. Just looking at the soul defense of the soul ring was enough. Spears and shields always existed together. Let's see how many Violet Flower Immortal Herbs there are? Yi Chen suggested after coming back to his senses. That's right. We don't have much time. Scarlet Wind Emperor and the others woke up. After entering the valley, the 4 started to collect the Violet Flower Immortal Herbs. The process was fast and smooth. After counting, there were 3,600 Violet Flower Immortal Herbs. The 5 of them divided it equally, and each of them got 720. It was a shocking number. Chapter 1196. One stalk of Violet Flower Immortal Grass can replenish the soul power of a 7th-layer monarch. 720 stalks should be enough for 720 tries. Scarlet Wind Emperor smiled. Snow Air Emperor said, directly consuming Violet Flower Immortal Grass is too wasteful. Combining it with other soul materials and refining it into pellets is the best choice. Stone Emperor nodded. Among the Emperor-grade pellets, there is one called Violet Flower Soul Refining Pellet. Its main ingredient is Violet Flower Immortal Grass. 720 stalks of Violet Flower Soul Refining Pellet can be refined into at least 5,000 violet flower soul refining pellets. Moreover, one violet flower soul refining pellet can replenish half of a 7th layer monarch's soul power. If you are not in a hurry to use the violet flower immortal grass, how about giving them to me? There are many alchemy masters in our phoenix race. Violet flower soul refining pellet is nothing. Only violet flower immortal grass is hard to find. The Fire Sparrow Emperor came from the Phoenix clan. Just like the Dragon clan, the Phoenix clan was one of the top clans among the Yao clan. The Vermilion Bird clan was also a branch of the Phoenix clan. The Fire Sparrow Emperor and the Vermilion Bird King of the Divine Paradise were both vermilion birds. Yichen was somewhat tempted. What about the other soul materials? Yes, and the refinement fee? Scarlet Wind Emperor nodded. Fire Sparrow Emperor said, you don't need to worry about the other soul materials. The refinement fee is very simple. 10% of the pellets will be taken, and you can only get 90%. Otherwise, those old fellows won't refine pellets for you. Even yuan stones won't do. You can think about it yourself. But I think it's a good deal. Every time I ask them to refine pellets, although I get a cut, it saves me a lot of effort. 10% of pellets? After thinking about it, Yichen nodded. Not much. I'll keep 70 stalks for backup. The remaining 650 stalks are all yours. With that, Yichen took out 650 stalks of violet flower immortal grass and gave them to Fire Sparrow Emperor. 10% pills were indeed not a lot. After all, Yichen did not have any of the other soul spirit materials. Perhaps he could spend some effort to gather them, but that would be too tiring. Moreover, the cost of refining them would not be low either. It would cost at least a few $100 million. In that case, it would be better to just take 90% pills. He believed that 90% pills would still be around 4,000 pills. The Scarlet Wind Emperor and the other two also handed the Purple Magnificence Immortal Herb to the Fire Sparrow Emperor. Not long after, the 5 of them were expelled from this world and arrived at the prairie. At this time, all the multicolored pearls on the grassland had disappeared. The 5 of them moved in another direction and began to explore other places in the Purple Flower Secret Realm. In the end, the 5 of them were unable to find the map fragment. Although the Stone Emperor had been to Jade Maiden Peak, he didn't know where it was. A month later, the 5 of them found the exit and left the Purple Flower Secret Realm. Golden Armor Star, Secret Art Tower. The 6th floor of the Secret Art Tower contained Emperor-grade secret arts, while the 7th floor contained Emperor-grade secret arts. After thinking about it, Yichen decided not to cultivate Emperor-grade secret arts for the time being. Firstly, Emperor-grade secret arts were much harder to cultivate. With his cultivation base at the 6th layer of Life and Death realm, it would be a bit too ambitious. The higher one's cultivation base, the higher one's comprehension ability would be. His comprehension ability might be at the peak of 7th layer monarchs, but among 8th layer monarchs, it would undoubtedly be at the bottom. Cultivating an Emperor-grade secret art would take a long time to reach major completion. Even if he had the Tower of Time, it would be of no help. It would be better to take it slow and steady. First, he would cultivate Emperor-grade secret arts. Then he would cultivate Emperor-grade secret arts to the highest level. At that time, he would not be any weaker than a minor completion Emperor-grade secret art. Moreover, his soul power was purer than ordinary people's. If he used a peak Emperor-grade secret art, it would not necessarily be weaker than the most ordinary Emperor-grade secret art. Emperor-grade secret arts were rather expensive, and Emperor-grade soul arts were even more so. Before, Yichen still had 200 million contribution points left. This time, Yichen spent 500 million yuan stones to exchange for 500 million contribution points. He believed that it would be enough to exchange for a peak soul art. Compared to the soul defensive secret arts, the 6th floor had a bit more soul attack secret arts. There were 17 of them. Soul Explosion, 400 million contribution points. Soul Death, 420 million contribution points. Soul Rain, 450 million contribution points. Soul Frightening Arrow, 480 million contribution points. Yuan Spirit Severing, 500 million contribution points. Yichen didn't miss a single one of the 17 soul attack secret arts. He looked through them one by one. Every time he saw one, he couldn't help but sigh in amazement. According to the description, none of these soul attack secret arts were easy to deal with. Soul explosion, as the name implied, was an explosion of soul power that could heavily injure or even annihilate the enemy's soul. It was very difficult to cultivate, as it required one to condense soul thunders. Soul death was an extremely strange soul attack. Without the enemy noticing, it would gradually erode the enemy's soul. By the time the enemy realized it, it would already be too late. The soul rain was even more peculiar. It was actually a soul attack secret art that covered a large area. In Yichen's opinion, it was a little useless. Of course, it might have other uses. The soul-frightening arrow was very powerful. Yuan's spirit severing was condensed into a large saw that could cut the enemy's soul. Ordinary soul defense wouldn't be able to defend against it. Without stopping, Yichen continued to look through the list. Nightmare amazing. There's also this soul attack secret art that plants a nightmare in the enemy's soul and activates it at a critical moment. It's enough to cause the enemy's body and mind to collapse. Too bad, it's not suitable for me. Yichen continued to walk. When he saw the 17th secret art, Yichen stopped and chose this one. Soul Chasing Sword, 630 million contribution points. The label stated, condense a small soul sword in one soul. At a critical moment with a single thought, the small soul sword would directly attack. It could change direction midway, and it could even be retracted. It's a bit like the defensive sword art, but much more terrifying. After spending 630 million contribution points, Yichen obtained the secret art of Soul Chasing Sword. After looking through it, Yichen discovered that the Soul Chasing Sword was divided into 3 levels. The first level was Soul Refining, the second was Soul Tempering, and the third was Soul Chasing. Let's return to the Paradise of Gods first. Putting away the Soul Chasing Sword, Yichen walked out of the secret art tower. Paradise of Gods. 1 month later, Yichen cultivated the second level of Soul Chasing Sword, Soul Tempering. The cultivation of Soul Chasing Sword was like forging a treasure sword. First, it had to be purified and then tempered. Once it was forged into a true treasure sword, it could chase the soul and kill without spilling blood. However, the difficulty of forging a sword was thousands of times more difficult than forging a sword. After all, what was being forged was one's own soul power. Every forging was a form of torture. It was as if one's soul was being cut apart. In addition, the arrangement of soul power was also very complicated. It was even more complicated than the arrangement of soul rings. Shwa! A faint light flashed in his hand, and a spirit herb appeared in his hand. It was the ice soul grass that Yichen obtained from the purple flower secret realm. The ice soul grass could raise one's spirit, and was extremely useful for cultivating soul secret arts. After consuming the ice soul grass, Yichen immediately felt his soul become much cooler. The pain from before also disappeared, and his mind became exceptionally clear. Chapter 1197. As expected of the ice soul grass, my soul power seems to have become more controllable. Yichen did not dare to be careless. He immediately started practicing the soul chasing sword art. The effect of the ice soul grass was limited. One ice soul grass could maintain its effect for about a month. In this half a month, the first 5 days would be the strongest, the middle 5 days would begin to weaken, and the last 5 days would be the residual effect. Above the Sea of Soul, in addition to the Immortal Sword Spirit and the Destruction Sword Spirit, a small sword was taking shape. It was the Soul Chasing Sword. However, the Immortal Sword Soul and Destruction Sword Soul were part of the Sea of Soul. They were unable to move. They were like the sun and moon of a living world. The Soul Chasing Sword, on the other hand, was free. With a thought from Yichen, the Soul Chasing Sword could drill out of the Sea of Soul and attack the enemy. Of course, it was unknown whether it could kill the enemy's soul. Currently, the Soul Chasing Sword could not be considered a treasure sword because it had not been sharpened. An unsharpened sword, no matter how good the material was, would not be able to kill efficiently. Clang, clang, clang. Two whetstones formed from soul power appeared and continuously rubbed against the two edges and the tip of the soul chase sword. Every time they rubbed against each other, the soul chase sword would become sharper, and a chilling aura would spread out. One day in the outside world was equivalent to 100 days in the Tower of Time. Basically, every day, Yichen would polish the soul-chasing sword several tens of thousands of times. In 100 days, it would be several million times. In a month in the outside world, in 100 months in the Tower of Time, Yichen had polished the soul-chasing sword a total of 100 million times. Although the consumption of soul power each time was negligible, it couldn't withstand so many times. Fortunately, Yichen had the splendid purple immortal grass. When his soul force was less than half depleted, Yichen would consume half of the splendid purple immortal grass to replenish his soul force. After a month in the outside world, Yichen had already consumed 15 stalks of amethyst immortal grass. Fortunately, I have the glorious violet immortal grass. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to cultivate the soul-chasing sword art to such a level in such a short period of time. It really consumes too much soul power. The soul-chasing sword art was different from other soul attack secret arts. It focused on sharpness. Other soul attack secret arts only required one to comprehend the arrangement of soul power. How could it be so complicated? Of course, from this aspect, one could see how powerful the soul-chasing sword was. Ordinary monarch-level soul defensive secret arts would definitely be pierced through and cut open. As for the ice soul grass, Yichen had only used 4 stalks. After one stalk was used up, Yichen would only consume a second stalk after a long period of time. After all, he still needed it to cultivate his soul ring to the highest rank of purple soul ring. Time passed bit by bit. On this day, the soul-chasing sword suddenly erupted with a sword cry that soared into the sky. An extremely sharp aura swept out. This aura was so powerful that it even caused the immortal sword soul and destruction sword soul to tremble. Unbeknownst to Yichen, a sliver of the immortal sword intent and destruction sword intent fused into the soul-chasing sword. Sword intent could also damage the soul. However, this kind of damage was much weaker than soul attacks. However, when the two were combined, there were probably not many people who knew what kind of changes would occur. The immortal sword intent and destruction sword intent were too weak for Yichen to notice. However, once the soul-chasing sword intent grew stronger, Yichen would eventually find out. Finally, it's reached the large success stage. Yichen exhaled heavily. The soul-chasing sword intent was divided into 3 levels. Cultivating to the second level was the small success stage. Cultivating to the third level was the large success stage. Cultivating to the peak of the third level was the large success stage. Cultivating to the large success stage was not something that could be done overnight. This had nothing to do with one's perception. This was because doing anything required a process. It was the process of grinding an iron rod into a needle. Once the soul-chasing sword intent was used many times, it would naturally reach the large success stage. It's a pity that I can't find anyone to test it on. The soul-chasing sword intent had reached the large success stage. Yichen urgently wanted to know the power of the soul-chasing sword intent. Unfortunately, he couldn't use it on the members of the Paradise of Gods. With the power of the soul-chasing sword intent, no one in the Paradise of Gods could block it. Even if they cultivated an emperor-rank soul defense secret technique, they still wouldn't be able to. Yichen had a feeling that if the soul-chasing sword intent was used against him, even his soul ring wouldn't be able to block it. Unless he cultivated his soul ring to the highest rank of purple soul ring, only then would he know whether the spear or the shield was stronger. Next, I can also cultivate my soul ring to the large success stage. After walking out of the Pagoda of Time, Yichen went to the Paradise of Gods Hotel to drink some wine and chat with some acquaintances. After returning, he officially cultivated his soul ring. Every time his soul ring increased by 1 level, there would be an additional layer of soul defense. On the battlefield, it was a secret technique to protect his life. Who knew what kind of expert would secretly use soul attacks to attack him? After consuming the ice soul grass, Yichen sank into a state of cultivation. Half a month in the outside world, 50 months in the pagoda of time. Outside the blue soul ring, a speck of purple light suddenly appeared. The purple light was like a purple mist that pervaded the air. Upon closer inspection, one could discover that this purple light, which was also the purple mist, was constructed from runes. It wasn't just a pure purple mist. What Yi Chen wanted to do was to condense the purple mist into a purple soul ring. This would allow it to have the ability to self-stabilize and absorb soul power. This was like building a building. How to make a building extremely stable and firm was Yi Chen's goal. Peng! After condensing half of the purple soul ring, it suddenly collapsed and turned back into purple mist. It was just that the purple mist was much thicker than before. As expected, condensing a purple soul ring is 10 times more difficult than condensing a blue soul ring. I need to understand the structure of the runes in order to finally form a purple soul ring. After failing 10 times in a row, Yi Chen stopped condensing the purple soul ring and turned to observe the purple runes formed by his soul power. The purple runes were very strange. They were like talismans. After the soul power formed the talismans, the condensation rate increased by countless times. It was a bit like carbon turning into diamond, a strange change. As the days passed, Yi Chen became more and more familiar with the purple runes. He even improved it a bit, making it easier to form a purple soul ring. Again, after he was almost done, Yi Chen continued. 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Condensing a purple soul ring also consumed a lot of soul power. Although condensing a blue soul ring consumed soul power, Yi Chen's soul power was still able to support it. But now he couldn't support it at all. He needed to rely on the purple flower immortal grass. After thousands of uses, some of the purple runes couldn't bear the burden and directly collapsed, disappearing into nothingness. The consumption of soul power was very serious. Hard work paid off. After using 3 stalks of ice soul grass and 10 stalks of purple flower immortal grass, the purple soul ring was finally condensed successfully. Outside of Yi Chen's soul sea, red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple soul rings revolved. The innermost soul ring was red, and the outermost soul ring was purple. It looked very gorgeous, as if he was wearing a layer of rainbow clothes. It was so gorgeous, but it didn't appear flashy. The purple soul ring was much more overbearing compared to the other 6 soul rings. It had a strong soul field. Any foreign soul power that came close would be affected by the soul field and automatically disintegrate or become unstable. Since then, Yi Chen's soul-chasing sword and soul ring were both completed. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.